Hi, good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. Law and Institutional Reform Minister Datuk Sri Azalina Othman Said has called for an immediate investigation into the recruitment agents responsible for duping migrant workers to secure jobs that were not available. She said firm action will be taken against any businesses that are exploiting legitimate migrant workers, with the Human Resources Ministry to summon the employment agency involved. The Pengerang MP said she had also reached out to Human Resources Minister Stephen Sim, who informed her that about 2,500 of these duped migrants are in her constituency. Yesterday, the police arrested 171 Bangladeshi men who were walking in a large group in Pengerang, Johor, captured in a video that went viral. They were reportedly heading towards the Bayu Damai police station to press charges against their agents, claiming they had yet to be employed after 3 to 6 months. All of them, aged between 19 and 43, had valid documents and were handed over to the Immigration Department. Meanwhile, police has taken down one of the biggest drug syndicate in Sabah. In a special operation by Narcotics Crime Investigation Department, NCID, and Eastern Sabah Security Command, ESCOM, a total of 10 syndicate members were arrested, including a 40-year-old patron of an NGO believed to be the leader.
Pada 25 Disember, jam 2:30 pagi, satu operasi khas telah dilancarkan oleh Jabatan Sektarian Narkotik dengan kerjasama ESCOM Sabah dalam mementras satu sindiket dadah paling besar di Sabah. Dalam operasi ini, beberapa serbuan telah dibuat di sekitar Kota Kinabalu, pantai timur Sabah, melibatkan daerah Tawau dan juga Sempurna. Hasil daripada operasi ini, seramai 10 lelaki yang merupakan ketua sindiket dan juga ahlinya telah berjaya ditahan. Dan tanggapan ini melibatkan ketua sindiket yang berusia 40 tahun, yang merupakan seorang ahli penjagaan, yang mana sebelum ini pernah ditangkap di bawah, diambil tindakan di bawah Seksyen 3(1) Akta Merbahaya LPK.
According to Deputy Inspector General of Police Datuk Sri Ayub Khan Maidin Piche, the syndicate has been active since 2015 with a drug network locally and overseas. Their supply of shabu came from a neighbouring country before it is smuggled to Sabah via flights through drug mules and cargo ships. Besides Sabah, they also traffic drugs to the Philippines and Indonesia. Ayub said this is the first time a drug syndicate's members were being held under SOSMA, with those arrested to be investigated under Section 130V of the Penal Code. The police also aim to seize proceeds from their illegal activities.
Continuing the conversation post-Parti Amanah Negara Amanah elections last weekend, the party describes itself as a multi-ethnic and multi-religious party. However, it is seen as the face of Islamic and Malay identity within Pakatan Harapan PH. Associate Professor Dr. Shazza Shukri from IIUM discusses how the party leadership can improve its messaging so that it reaches the rest of the country in time for the 16th general elections.
Because we always talk about Amanah, unfortunately being the weakest link in Pakatan Harapan. So there's a lot of work for them to do, but I think they also realize that, I hope they realize that the main thing that they need to do is really to reach out to the Malays, right? In the sense that this is what Malaysian politics has been about. We know that since GE15, it's all about winning the hearts and minds of the Malays. So how can Amanah do that? UMNO has its own way, has its own support base. What is Amanah? Who is Amanah? So, like I said earlier, we know actually what is Amanah, who is Amanah, but the rest of Malaysia know that. So it's a lot of work to really get their message across. All this talk about Maqasid al-Shari'ah, Rahmatan lil Alamin. So it's really a lot of work for the next 4 years. I just wish the best for them.
The party guidelines follow the approach of the Maqasid Shari'ah, or higher objectives of the Sharia, that adopt the values of social justice, good governance, and multicultural coexistence. Meanwhile, this is encapsulated in their slogan Rahmatan lil Alamin, or in translation means blessings to all, which is inspired by a verse from the Quran. With the rapid growth of drone technology here in Malaysia, a robotic solutions company, Meraki, expects more than 100,000 high-paying jobs to be available. Its Chief Operating Officer Suryahani Afendi Chu says the promising GDP projections of over 50 billion ringgit encourage youth to find avenues for upskilling in order to take part in the industry.
Looking at how we can forecast 2024, I think that's where the transformations of digital solutions comes in, the enhancements of the drone tech, not only looking into a hardware. I think that's where the software comes in, and both the combinations, actually enhancements of technology, give a better future of how we can bring the industry. So the expansions in 2024 brings another new future of another enhancements of technology, not only about drone. We are looking into the previous solutions and also moving onwards on transformations to digital solutions. We have actually conquered, or we have exploring all the agriculture and plantations industry. And this is how we are looking into expansions of the potential, especially Sabah, Sarawak, other countries as well, where we can actually develop the youth, we can develop the local community to actually serve on the drone tech perspective.
We'll take a short break. Don't go anywhere.
He's a changed man. I dah nampak dia siapa.
Apabila kepercayaan hilang, peluang kedua bukan mudah untuk diberi.
Aileen tak nak jumpa sesiapa keluar.
Kau tanyalah mana-mana perempuan sekalipun. Adakah yang sanggup nak maafkan?
Jijik sangat ke tangan saya ni, Aileen.
Tangan kau ni dah sentuh banyak perempuan.
Tolonglah terima saya balik.
Syurga itu bukan mudah. Isnin hingga Khamis, 10 malam di Astro dan On Demand.
Konflik Palestin-Israel memperlihatkan dunia zahir sokongan pada Hari Perpaduan Antarabangsa bersama rakyat Palestin.
3 jumlah negeri sudah pun terkesan akibat banjir, antaranya adalah Terengganu, Kelantan dan juga Selangor.
Berkenaan dengan SPRM beku akaun NGO Aman Palestin, penyelewengan dana RM70 juta.
Berkenaan dengan penipuan pakej umrah, polis terima lebih 300 laporan yang melibatkan kerugian RM14 juta.
Welcome back. Malaysia ranks 94th place worldwide, up 19 steps from the previous year in the Global Livability Index by the Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU. Among the indicators being considered is the quality of infrastructure. Koh Charlie from Urban Metri shares how KL fares when it comes to having sustainable and well-developed infrastructure.
Some of the key infrastructure issues that we have not been sufficiently addressed in the last few years, including our response to climate change, our push towards public transportation have gone up a little bit. So I won't rob us of any upward movement in improvements. So if you look at some of the public transport ridership, it has gone up in the last few years, but stagnated in 2022 and 2023. So if you look at some of the data, 2022, 2023, ridership actually stabilized, rebounded after COVID, but not to the level that's expected, right? So things like public transport, infrastructure, climate change, flooding, flash floods, we are seeing a lot more of that as a function of climate change, but also not sufficient infrastructure improvements in order to be resilient against climate change.
Charlie says with businesses adapting to hybrid work, Kuala Lumpur needs to be able to keep up with the evolving job landscape.
We have a lot of the GLCs in the government and big corporates or the old school corporates who are saying, come back to office. Then you have this new wave of MNCs and smaller companies like mine whose my team will say, I'll quit if you make me come every day at 8:45, right? So this is a bit of like a clash of different waters that's happening. And so the real estate market is stabilizing around that. We will see a lot of turbulence here. This turbulence not only affects real estate prices, it will affect the businesses that functions as a feed off of office workers. So think of all the lunch places, your supermarket, your foot traffic, all those things that feed off of your commercial spaces will now see a sudden drop in traffic. So we are seeing the drop in traffic for the last few years, and a lot of businesses, as a result, are dying, who feeds off workers, office workers. The city needs to respond to this.
Charlie also weighs in on the newly created ministry within the Prime Minister's department in charge of federal territories, and what challenges might the Minister, Dr. Zaliha Mustafa, face in helming the portfolio.
She was previously in a completely different portfolio that was aligned to her profession, right? So that she had a lot of knowledge. She had a lot of, background in health, right? FD Ministry is a completely different portfolio and something that a lot of people take too lightly. It is a very complex portfolio, a lot of stakeholders, and land is always contentious. I think she will be dealing with very, very different crowd as before. Before, you're dealing with medical professionals, pharmaceutical is a highly regulated portfolio. This portfolio is regulated, but executing those regulations is often challenging. So I think she will have a steep learning curve.
Charlie also highlights some of the challenges Dr. Zaliha would face in implementing the KL Structure Plan 2040.
She will have a little bit of a hard time trying to implement the plan. There will be lobbyists who's going to come in and push back because some of the terms that are in the KL Structure Plan will make it a little bit more difficult for property developers, smaller property developers, to exist. So, which is a good thing, in my opinion, because it is time that some of these sort of hobbyists or fly-by-night property developers to start being held to higher standards. And those of us who are committed to not abandon projects, to build quality buildings, to build for residents of the cities, to be rewarded with higher barrier of entry. I think the more responsible developers will not have an issue because they are already adhering to these standards, right? The guys who are just, fly by night, they will have an issue, but they will also probably be lobbying the hardest against some of these terms and new policies that's happening on the KL Structure Plan.
On the global front, several pro-Palestinian demonstrators were arrested during a protest in New York on Christmas Day. However, the exact number of arrests was not made immediately available. Hundreds of protesters marched along 50th Street in Midtown Manhattan, calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Palestinian conflict on Monday, chanting "Christmas is cancelled here." Footage captured the demonstrators carrying flags and displaying various signs advocating for a ceasefire. New York Police Department said several individuals were taken into custody during the protests. One officer sustained minor injuries before the demonstration was successfully dispersed without further escalation. The protest was the latest anti-Israel march to take place in the Big Apple, since Hamas launched an attack on Israel on October 7th, which then led to Israel's genocide on Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted that peace can only be achieved in Gaza if Hamas is destroyed, the territory demilitarized, and Palestinian society de-radicalized. He also threatened that the war is set to intensify as the death toll in Gaza tops 20,670. More than 100 people were killed in Gaza overnight by Israeli airstrikes on the Maghazi refugee camp. Palestinian authorities reported 250 people were also killed in waves of Israeli bombardment over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said the war will not stop, and he is ready to encourage Palestinians in Gaza to leave the enclave. Hamas has condemned the statement. Hamas is believed to be holding more than 100 hostages from among 240 they captured since an October 7th attack, where 1,200 people were also killed. That's all we have for you on Awani Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Saraya Mia, and we'll see you again.
Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. As we mark World Children's Day on the 20th of November, which is a day to celebrate or commemorate the innocence, the potential and the rights of children across the globe, let's keep in mind today the children of Gaza. Now, as we speak, more than 5,000 children in Gaza have been killed by Israeli bombardments, with some 1,800 children missing under the rubble of destroyed buildings, presumed dead. And the question is, what will happen to the children who survive this war? What is their future going to be like? Joining us now is Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal Muhammad Perdaus. He is president of Mercy Malaysia. Dr. Faizal, thank you for being on the show today. And I read somewhere that a 15-year-old child in Gaza today has lived through 5 wars since 2008. I'm wondering what this particular war might have, what impact this might have on children these past 6 weeks of non-stop bombardments.
Thank you, Melissa. So I'll go straight into the points, how wars and conflicts like this, especially this particular one, affects children in Gaza. And after that, I'll go back to your 15-year-old. So first of all, the direct impact of this horrendous, indiscriminate bombing that we've seen, and bombardment, if you like, not just bombing from above, but also